Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start our program, and I encourage you to keep eating so that we can keep things moving and get you out of here as soon as we can, but entertained. Please make sure your cell phones are off. I'm Karen Krieger, Executive Director of Philanthropy for Pathways Home Health and Hospice. It is absolutely delightful to welcome you back to this ballroom in person. We haven't been here since 2019. It's wonderful to be here. Hooray for masks and vaccinations. Yay! And speaking of that, just a reminder, Santa Clara County tells us that unless we're eating and drinking or socially distanced at the podium, we need to have our masks on. So I have done my duty and told you what the rule is. Thank you so much for joining us for our 30th anniversary of the One from the Heart Awards breakfast. Our marketing team got together and has a little gift for you if you didn't pick it up on the way in. We have a Pathways bag for you to fill up with wonderful things to celebrate in your own way for whatever anniversary or occasion comes next in your lives. This wonderful breakfast over 30 years has brought in more than $7.6 million to support Pathways patients and their families. The applause was for you. Thank you, and thank you again. You've helped over 125,000 people. We hope you enjoyed our slideshow this year, showing the sponsors and friends and supporters and donors and photographs of people some of you may know. Do take a look at your program for other people that have supported Pathways and continue to do so, and say thank you on our behalf. We so appreciate it. In your program, you will also find an invitation to sip and shop, I can say that, at J. McLaughlin in the Town and Country Village on November 9th and 10th. They're partnering with us once again on those 2 days. 15% of their proceeds come back to Pathways. That's very nice of them. There are catalogs on your table, and if you want to pick up another one, there's some on the way out, again, very close to the marketing and the pretty bags that we have. Michelle is here somewhere from Town and Country. Wave back there. Thank you, Michelle. As you know, One from the Heart celebrates both those who support hospice and home health care and those who provide that care. Every day, our Pathways caregivers and volunteers, hospice and home health and palliative care teams bring heartfelt care to Pathways patients and families across our 5-county service area. Because you care so deeply, Pathways is able to offer extensive bereavement services, not just to patient families, but to all those in the community who have suffered the loss of a loved one. And for many of you here, you've already taken advantage of that program. All of these are just a fraction of the many things that Pathways is able to do because of your generous donations. Every single dollar you give benefits Pathways patients and families. Thank you for helping us to provide the excellent level of care our community deserves. Pathways' commitment to our patients and our community will not change, and they proved that in the last year and a half with the pandemic. Pathways' mission is to provide high-quality, patient and family-centered care in the home with kindness and respect, promoting comfort, independence, and dignity to all whom we serve. One special patient and one special moment at a time. Every penny you contribute serves those very special Pathways patients. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, all of our hearts. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce Rita Williams, our treasured MC of over 20 years. We keep trying to get that number exact, and we'll have to go back and do the right count there. Rita is a retired KTVU Channel 2 television journalist, winner of multiple Emmy, Peabody, and Mora Awards for outstanding journalism, and she will continue our program. Rita will also share some wonderful family news. Rita?
Okay, let's get this moving. We need some excitement in here. We're small, but we are mighty, right? Good morning. That wasn't enough. Let's try it again. Good morning. Good morning. Yay. What a difference a year makes, right? Geez. This time last year, I was taping a video of Pathways Breakfast in my yard, and my only live audience was a camera crew with Oscar, who's still back there, thank you, Oscar, and an engineer. And when I said good morning, they went, huh? It's so good to be here. What I missed the most were your lovely, smiling faces. And after 20 years, we think it's more like 25, but that dates me too much, I think. So, but I've gotten to know all of you as part of the Pathways family, and it feels so good to be back here, doesn't it? Give you all. Speaking of that video, be honest. How many of you actually watched it last year? Raise your hand. Yay, well, our work helped a little bit. But if you did, or if you didn't, I think we're going to show a little photo up here. And you know how we were all, this was the beginning of the pandemic. No vaccinations, no anything. And this was one of the first nonprofit fundraising videos anywhere. So I didn't have my pajamas on, but I was pretty homey and down home and casual. And so what I demonstrated was learning how to cut my hair thanks to a pandemic video on YouTube. There I am. Now you know why I'm happy to be here. I have a professional cut. What do you think about that? Our normal audience here, as those of you who have been with us for so many years know, is about 3 times bigger than what we have here. We're usually crammed in here. And so we may be, as I said, small, but we are going to be mighty. And looking over and seeing all these familiar faces, there's one that I just have to point out, and that is Jessie Cool. Jessie, wake up over there. I know it's early for you. Would you stand up real quick? Jessie's short, so you may not see her even when she stands up, but there she is. And last year, when we pivoted to video instead of live here at the Crown Plaza, I called my dear friend Jessie and said, would you help out? Would you give us a tour of your beautiful garden, organic garden? And if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to encourage Karen to make sure it's back on our website so that you can watch it. But Jessie gave, and if you don't know Jessie, she's one of the original first sustainable, wonderful restaurateurs who's been around and is just so giving and philanthropic. But Jessie not only gave us a tour of her garden, she talked about what it's like to be an elder nowadays in our community. and about being a mother and a grandmother, and what is really important in life. She also showed us some must-have items for your kitchen, and then what to do with them, which I needed help, I gotta tell you. So she whipped, and while she's doing all this, I forgot to mention, she was serving meals of gratitude to frontline healthcare workers in this area. And she also was still operating her wonderful restaurant, Flea Street in Menlo Park, and it's now fully opened, remodeled, so if you haven't been, go see Jessie there. But she also whipped up a frittata. And so if you saw the video, you might think, oh, how cool. Rita and Jessie were together. Well, no, Jessie and I, friends, we were scared to see each other in person. So she made the frittata, and Oscar and his helpers came over to my house with the frittata. We used it as a prop, and then I quickly ate it. But will you now join me in thanking Jessie for being so gracious? And I forgot to mention, for special donors, she also donated some of her cookbooks and autographed them. How many of you got a cookbook? Yay, I see some, yay. But now let me transition over to my big news that Karen alluded to at the beginning. You might remember that the last time we were here in 2019, I introduced our newborn granddaughter, Brooke, a whole new phase in our lives. Now fast forward 2 years, and I'd like for you to meet her little brother, 2-month-old Turner James Bowen. That was the day he came home from the hospital, and you'll see his big sister, Brooke, the first time she met him. And you'll notice that when they left the hospital, my son, daughter-in-law, and Turner, as they had with Brooke, left the hospital in Giants uniforms. Oscar, you can put it back up there if you want to. But that is a good segue for me. I had hoped that we would be rooting on the Giants right now, but we all have that disappointment. But it's a good chance for me to do a shout out to our good friend, there he is, Bob, over there, former Giants owner Bob Lurie, and his wife Connie. Bob and Connie, if you don't know, have always been Pathways supporters and always here. And this year, I reached out to them because the Giants added Bob, the man who saved the Giants for San Francisco. I covered that. Hopefully you remember that, to its wall of fame. And I think he's the only second person that's not a player on the wall of fame. So, Bob, we're very proud of you. Thank you. Through the years, I've shared many experiences about my time, or my family's time, with hospice and with Pathways and the home health care. And you might, if you really have been here a long time, you'll remember my mother, who was 95 and sat with her, retirement home, I guess, back in the back on a table that they bought every year. And you could hear my mother going, "Why don't they get that speaker off? My daughter makes better sense than he does." And my mother was a corker. She was really great, but love her. But Pathways took such good care of her. But just a few months ago, my husband had a very minor incident, and we needed a little help at home. And so we were so delighted that we said we wanted Pathways. And we actually asked for the physical therapist that he had had after his open heart surgery 4 years ago. And Amit came to our house. And he was just as wonderful and loving as he had been 4 years ago. And what it did was remind us of how Pathways, home health care, and hospice are still going into your house every day. Pre-vaccinations, whatever. They were still there for all of us when we needed them, COVID or not. And some of the stories are just heart-wrenching. I think hopefully you'll hear some of them later today. But I think what I want to emphasize, and you may recall me saying this a few years ago, that I didn't know if you're at the hospital, a social worker says you need home health care or you need hospice, you have a choice. Sometimes they'll assign you somebody, or they have a sheet of paper and they don't know one from the other. I always say now, oh, can I have Pathways? And they go, absolutely. So I'm just letting you all know, before you need to get to that point, that you can ask for this wonderful nonprofit when you need it, and they will be here for you. And my grandchildren will know, as their parents already know, that the loving folks at Pathways will be here to take care of both sets of their grandparents who live around here, maybe their own parents someday, just as Pathways did so lovingly for my mother, their great-grandmother. I don't want to tear up here, but and as we all know, that circle of life is one reason we're all here, to support this caring, capable, and compassionate nonprofit. We want to be sure when our time comes, or that of someone we love, that Pathways will be here for us. And some of the money, let me just tell you, goes into a little fund called Wishes and Needs, and it allows healthcare workers to buy things that make the end of life for some of their patients even better. In last year's video, and it seems only a dozen or two of you saw that, so let me tell you, we told a heartwarming story of Cliff and his very special violin. He called it his little friend. Cliff had no family. He had had a really tough life. All he had left was his childhood violin. Pathways Healthcare Heroes had that violin repaired and restored thanks to the Wishes and Needs Fund, and he enjoyed it for several months. And when he could no longer play, his care team provided violin recordings to relax and soothe him. Cliff's words after receiving his refurbished violin and expressing his gratitude to Pathways workers and his team who made it possible were true to the end. We heard him on the video saying, "I'm happier than I have ever been. I'm living my best life now." That's why we're here. I think we're finding out a lot about ourselves after being sequestered for so long. I think I'm very emotional. But haven't we learned a lot? I mean, I truly have learned to appreciate, to live in the moment, wake up each morning and say, how can I help those that need the help today? And I think this has all one reason that we're still here supporting Pathways. Let me recognize just a few people here that are helping make this breakfast a reality. And please just wave. We're big on waving here instead of getting up. When I say your name, and don't applaud until the end, but let me just mention a few names in particular. Our breakfast underwriters: El Camino Healthcare District Board Chair Julia Miller. Julia, waving, there she is. District Board Secretary Treasurer Dr. Carol Summersill. There she is. And District Board Member John Zoglin. And I also see the head of nursing at El Camino, who was there for my husband. We're grateful to all of you, all of our community partners, and to our Challenge Grant donors, and you'll hear more about them later. So take a look at your programs. We list a lot of names of these individuals, corporations, foundations, and organizations, and they do so much to help Pathways. They've made financial and volunteer commitments, and to One for the Heart for our breakfast today. And with each of you, they're the ones that make Pathways work possible. A huge thank you also to the One from the Heart Committee. They work hard throughout the year to put this wonderful breakfast together. And this is one place where you can be sexist and say, please wave ladies, because the One from the Heart Committee is all women. So wave, ladies. Thank you. Our event chair again is Maury Chasen, and our, let's see here, the ambassadors, I didn't mention them, the ambassadors. If you're an ambassador at your table, you probably already know it, because these are real jewels that buy a table and fill it with their friends. So wave if you're an ambassador. And you can tell how hard they work, because even in this uncertain COVID time, this ballroom, as we already said, is a third full. And that's socially distanced. That was on purpose. So next year we hope to fill it all up again. But thank you all for being here. What you don't see this morning are many of our friends who are actually watching this live stream, thanks to Oscar and his crew back there. So don't say or do anything you don't want to be on other people to see away from here. I'm trying to watch what I say here. The Ambassador Program co-chairs are Christine Allo and Suzanne Small. Are you wave? As Karen told you, and it's hard for me to believe, this One from the Heart breakfast is celebrating its 30th anniversary. 30 years, that's 3 decades of raising money. Is anybody here, are you brave enough to raise your hand if you were at the first one 30 years ago? Oh, we do, yay. Yay, 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 we do have some, thank you. And as Karen said, we don't know how many of these I've been to, but I think I've been emceeing about 25 years. And let me, if you're, thank you. But I'll remind you, if you're new to this, of how that began. It was when my colleague and dear friend at Channel 2, Faith Fancher, had just had a reoccurrence of her breast cancer. And Pathways actually asked a colleague of mine, Diane Dwyer, to MC the breakfast. And Diane and I were friends, and she lives in the East Bay, and she called me and said, I can't make it. Can you fill in for me? I filled in, and you guys liked me, and you kept inviting me back. And so back then, Pathways, which was called, what was the name? Mid-Peninsula Hospice. They had on the same day, they had a luncheon in the East Bay, the breakfast over here. So I recruited Faith, and she emceed the luncheon in the East Bay on the same day I did the breakfast. So that was another big connection with Faith. And of course, she passed away from her breast cancer. But so it's serendipity sometimes, how we arrive where we are. We all know that. And I think during the pandemic, we've had time to think about what we want to be, who we want to be, who we want to help. And I am happy to be here helping with Pathways. So I want to thank also the staff from Pathways and many volunteers. Would you raise your hand? And thank you for being so important to this breakfast. And that's okay. Keep clapping, because now you can clap for everybody. And can you believe, as Karen said, we've raised $7.6 million over those 30 years. That sounds like a lot, but to me it sounds low, too. I think we can keep jumping that one up. And then my very last shout out, if you'll indulge me for a minute, is to a woman that I know is listening, live stream, and that is Holly Smith. For the past 14 years, Holly has been Pathways Foundation event and sponsorship manager, which means for 14 years, she's been the mover and shaker that put this breakfast together. And she's a little under the weather right now and taking a little time off. And we can't wait for you to get back, Holly, and be well, so do it fast. And we are thinking of you today. Yay, Holly. And let me just call your attention, if you haven't already noticed them, pretty centerpieces on your tables. Those are made by Beth Covey of the Sassy Diva. And as we always do after the breakfast, those will be taken to Pathways patients, families, and supporters to show them that they're not alone. I love that tradition. As you already know, it's been 2 very eventful and unexpected years since we were all here together in 2019. And during that time, Pathways, even though you may not have known it, has been led by somebody that we hope to introduce at that breakfast, or 2 years ago. Andy Robinson. He'll be up here in a minute, so he doesn't have to wave yet. Took over the reins from Barbara Burgess and her executive team after they entered into a long-sought management services agreement and collaboration with Common Spirit Health at Home in late 2019. Shortly thereafter, we know what all happened. COVID-19 lockdowns. During Andy's 2 years with Pathways, he's faced some of the most challenging things in medicine and healthcare, from fires and power shutoffs to the pandemic to its very end, seemingly endless, and yes, conversions. I do know that. They've had several at Pathways. And probably most importantly, the birth of Andy's second son. I'm delighted now. Andy and I talked last night. I met him for the first time last night. He is delightful. He's about the age of my son, and he's running this wonderful organization, Andy Robinson.
Well, good morning. I don't know what the bigger job is, leading Pathways or following Rita on the stage. Thank you, Rita, for those kind words. So as Rita mentioned, my name's Andy Robinson. I'm the Area Director of Operations for Pathways, which is really just a fancy way of saying that I oversee the day-to-day operations as well as strategy development. And really my ultimate goal is to support the team any way they need to be successful. My position is no more or less important than any other Pathways. I just have the great honor of leading the team. So as Rita mentioned, I've been here for 2 years. So I have about 2 years of stuff to say to you in about 10 minutes, so bear with me. My family and I moved here to the Bay Area from small town Nebraska in the fall of 2019. My wife Jade's a nurse practitioner, and we have 2 small children, Wesley, who's a little over 3, and Sam, our little Spitfire, who's about 18 months, and he goes by Babyzilla in our household. I began my career in home health and hospice as a home health aide, performing daily and live-in care for patients with high needs. Nursing school by day and working by night, I received an associate's degree in nursing from a community college back home and started working the floor right away. I'm a bedside nurse at heart. I started my career as a registered nurse at one of our Common Spirit hospitals at a very busy medical oncology stroke unit where I was trained by some of the best nurses in the country. I've been in leadership roles my entire life. If you knew my family, you'd understand when I say that being the middle of 5 blended adopted kids has been preparing me for this my entire life. As I started nursing, I almost immediately began coursework to earn a bachelor's degree in nursing, going to night classes after working 12-hour shifts at the hospital. The good old days. From 2006 to 2017, that same cycle repeated itself until I decided enough was enough after earning a master's in nursing and a master's in business administration from Nebraska Wesleyan University. Prior to Pathways, I've worked in several years in home health and hospice in various different management and director roles. So fall of 2019. November of 19, Pathways entered into what's called a managed service agreement with Common Spirit Health, which really organically made sense because Sequoia Hospital, one of the 50% owners of Pathways, is a Common Spirit hospital. With the MSA came a lot of change, not only in structure, but also in roles and responsibility for all the employees. As the previous executive team exited, I entered as the area director. Several positions were centralized, which offered a reduction in admin expenses for Pathways of almost 25%, and really the name of the game was operational efficiencies, reducing redundancies, and probably the most important thing for me was developing those trusting relationships with all of the employees at Pathways. I'm a big football fan, and I'm not just saying that because Ronnie's here. Anybody from Lincoln, Nebraska is a big football fan. Yeah. And if my dad was here, he'd tell me I need to put a plug in. And Ronnie, you played with some of the great Husker greats. Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, some of my dad's favorite football players. Anyways, so Nick Saban, Alabama's great head football coach, wrote something that I take with me every day in my leadership role, which is the simple philosophy that success cannot be achieved without each member of the team having clearly defined roles, set expectations, and ultimately someone to hold them accountable. My wife would tell you that's important in our house as well. I would be remiss not to mention how emotional the situation this was. It was vitally important for me, and one of my main objectives coming in the fall of 19, to be a leader first and a manager second. What people need most in times of change is leadership. They need transparency, a lot of support, and calmness in moments of chaos. And I think most of the Pathways employees here today would attest that there was just a little chaos at times, surely with the amount and the pace of change that was happening simultaneously. Another nugget I've always carried with me from another football great, Tom Osborne, is that things are never as good as they seem, but they're never as bad as they seem either. Vital for me is the team's ability to reflect. Think about this just for a moment. In a matter of 5 months, Pathways would undergo new leadership, a new medical record, new roles and responsibilities, the largest payment reform that home health had experienced in 20 years, new IT systems, new processes for almost everything we did, fires and evacuations, power outages for patients that require life-saving oxygen in their homes, and little did we know what was lingering on the horizon in February and March of 2020 with COVID-19. And did I mention our new director of business development started the very first day of shelter in place? So go market, Daniel. For the last 18 months, we've basically been in a constant state of emergency management and simultaneously undergoing arguably the biggest organizational change that not only our industry but our Pathways had ever experienced. The beautiful thing, however, is when a team is in it for the right reasons. It's that such adversity builds character, and I firmly believe that we are better today than we were yesterday, last week, last month, and last year. Success is not a vertical line, but a steady, incremental progress, and the entire team at Pathways has really embraced that culture. Culture, if overused and stagnant, can become cliche. But if culture is nurtured and allowed to evolve, it becomes the lifeblood of what we do and who we are. Lifeblood simply means the indispensable factor or influence that gives something its strength and vitality. When you look around the Bay Area, you'll find 100 different home health and hospice agencies. You might be asking yourself what makes Pathways different. And in about 5 minutes of being on site, working alongside leaders that are here today and clinicians at Pathways, I understood that difference loud and clear. I felt that difference. The difference is our fabric. It is our culture. It's our why. What agencies offer is almost identical, and how they perform their care is nuanced. But why agencies exist is where the real difference lies, and also what makes Pathways so special. Pathways belongs to the community, and we work for the community. I mean, heck, we're made up of this community. We're by no means perfect, and I can assure you no agency is, but we're grounded in principle, in very high quality patient outcomes, and rising up to challenges as they are presented to us. What more could we ask for? This is evidenced by the marked progress despite unprecedented challenges over the past 2 years. I really could not be more proud of the team at Pathways and consider myself very lucky to be a small part of it. By no stretch of the imagination could I stand up here today and not recognize and thank from the bottom of my heart, our frontline healthcare workers. You are our heroes. Our aides, our nurses, therapists, chaplains, social workers, doctors, nurse practitioners, our sales and marketing team, our incredible volunteers. Everyone on the team deserves our thanks and support. Without them, there is no mission, there is no Pathways. Our employees are, and always will be, our greatest asset. I also want to thank the office staff and the leadership teams at Pathways. If our clinicians are the engine that keeps this thing going, our office staff and leadership teams are the oil and the fuel that keep that thing running smoothly and consistently. I also want to extend a special thank you to Karen, our foundation board, our honorary board, who alongside the clinical and operations team have experienced, but most importantly overcome, tremendous adversity over the past 2 years, personally and professionally. And lastly, and very importantly, I want to thank you. Each one of you here today and each one of you listening, you are what makes us different. You are what makes us special. You've chosen to extend yourself and your families to support us, to support me, and to support Pathways. Words cannot express how deeply grateful I am for you and your support. Make no doubt about it, we need you now more than ever as we continue to rebound from all of the effects of the pandemic and everything that came with it. I speak for all of Pathways when I say thank you again for coming. Thank you for your continued support of our most sacred mission. And in keeping with the events of the past years, Mark Kelsey, our Pathways Foundation Board Chair, will now present the One from the Heart Award. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you very much for your leadership over the last 18 months. It's remarkable. When we transitioned from our longtime management team to the managed service agreement with Common Spirit, I think on all of our minds was the need to ensure that Pathways continues to be Pathways in serving our community, and it has. It very much has. It's gotten, if anything, it's steeper, stronger, and better under your leadership, and I'd like to give another round of applause to Andy for his leadership. I think all of us are here because we've been touched in some way by those frontline healthcare caregivers that have cared for our families, our friends, our neighbors, and our community. And it's been, as you know, very challenging over the last 18 months. Andy talked about some of that. Our Pathways frontline healthcare teams have truly been heroes during the pandemic. They have been daily taking care of all of the Pathways patients, taking care of our community. And they've risen to all the challenges. You heard about many of them from Andy. They've risen to all those challenges with grace and dignity and commitment. And all the while, putting their patients first, and at the same time, striving to keep their families safe and healthy during this pandemic. There's really no way that I think we can express the depth of our gratitude to our frontline healthcare teams. So I think it's very appropriate that this year's One from the Heart Award goes to all of our frontline healthcare heroes, all of our Pathways frontline healthcare heroes. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Accepting the award on behalf of her colleagues and coworkers is Jenifer Miller, a registered nurse, serving Pathways and serving our patients. Jenifer, please come up to the stage and I'd like to present the award to you. On behalf of all of us and on behalf of all of your coworkers, please accept our One from the Heart Award for this year for the Pathways Healthcare Frontline team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here with you today and grateful to be the recipient of this award on behalf of all of my colleagues. Pathways continues to be a leader of excellence with dedicated healthcare professionals providing care in the Bay Area and around the world during this unprecedented global health emergency. As we face new challenges with the coronavirus and the fallout associated with the global pandemic, it is important our stories continue to be shared. Our frontline healthcare clinicians were met with daily challenges, from the uncertainty of the supply chain shortages with personal protective equipment to keep our patients, loved ones, to keep us safe. There you go. Thank you.
You can tell that Jenifer represents a whole host of people that have been very difficult and have faced a lot throughout this. I think she is simply reflecting all that her coworkers have gone through.
To utilizing Zoom for our new means of communication. Thank you. I share with you a personal experience while parking at a nursing home in Fremont. I witnessed a son, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren holding up a 90th birthday sign and a cake to the window to sing their grandfather happy birthday through their N95 mask. The following day, I had the opportunity to advocate for a husband whose spouse became ill at home and was now in hospice care in a nursing home in San Jose. With the uncertainty of the coronavirus, the nursing home was not allowing any outside visitors apart from essential workers dressed in full personal protective equipment. This gentleman was in tears as I met him at the door to say goodbye to his beloved spouse of 63 years. He looked at me and he said, "I had no idea she was gonna die alone. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." Each and every one of us have been affected in some capacity, large or small. Thank you. Thank you to our bereavement team for continuing to support our patients, our families, and our healthcare heroes. Thank you to our leadership team, including Andy Robinson, Janine Roberts, and Jody Malari, for continually updating our services and procedures to reflect the changing circumstances in our communities and surrounding the coronavirus outbreak. With your financial support, we at Pathways are able to serve our surrounding communities and those whose lives have been deeply impacted by the pandemic. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. With your generous donations, we can ensure to provide and continue leading healthcare to all of the Bay Area. Thank you.
Well, I think you know what has to follow that, right? We have a video. Typically, Mari Chazen would be up here introducing her daughter Annie, who has been with us on many, many breakfasts to help with the fundraising part of the evening. So, Oscar, I'm going to say, roll the Annie clip.
Hello from Syracuse University. I'm Annie Chazen, and I've been volunteering with my mom for Pathways since I was in middle school. I'm so glad we were able to host this event in person this year and would like to welcome all of you who are joining us virtually and in person. Today we gather to celebrate and honor Pathways frontline healthcare heroes. It has been hard for all of us in these past few months, but especially for these courageous caregivers who need our support now more than ever. One of the most important ways to support their service is by donating to help cover not just the services we provide to every patient, but also the additional expenses that Pathways continues to incur during the coronavirus pandemic. Despite all of the challenges 2020 has brought us, it is my pleasure to announce that this year we have an $80,000 challenge grant. Gifts that you make to Pathways today through November 22nd will be matched dollar for dollar, thanks to the generosity of Marion and Raymond Christensen, Pamela and Edward Taft, Paula and Bill Power, Ronald and Joyce Castellino, and Sue and John Diekman. Thank you everyone so much for your generosity, and I really hope to see you all in person next year.
This is a great opportunity. You see how much love this organization has, and I love it. This is a chance to double your gift, and we have an $80,000 grant that won't happen without your help. So keep us in mind. You have an envelope at your table, and you have 30 days, and don't disappoint Annie. Thank you.
Talk about pivoting. You wouldn't have even known Maury wasn't here, right? And she did not introduce herself, but that last speaker that told you to give, and I love her, is Kingsley Jack. And she has been associated as a volunteer with Pathways since I started. I did some news stories with Carol Channing, who was entertaining one of our Pathways hospice patients, and did a story, this is 20, 25 years ago, whatever, about healthcare directives and how we can choose how we want to leave this earth. And Kingsley was my escort that day. She has a huge heart. I'm on the honorary fundraising committee with Kingsley, and she is great. And when Maury couldn't come, I said, Kingsley's a natural. She'll just say it like it is. Give. darn it, give. You've heard all these stories, so we hope that after hearing what Pathways has been doing through this pandemic, of not being able, one worker told me about wanting to touch her hospice patient. This is the very beginning, you know, when you're fully encased in stuff, and you can't touch a person as they're dying. I mean, that has stayed with me for 2 years now. There's just so many stories, and they've been here for us. So I hope that, as we always say, we can't do it alone. We need each other. We have to do it together, that you'll remember that. And your envelopes here, that you'll either give today or take it home, or you can give online. But we have a month to match that grant. And I wanted to tell you one other little way that I help Pathways that you may not know about, is how many of you have ordered a lot more the last 2 years on Amazon? Yay! I mean, I'm not advertising for Amazon, but I know I didn't go in a grocery store for over a year, and I used it a lot. Well, if you note on Amazon, they have a nonprofit part called Amazon Smile, and you can put a nonprofit, and a percentage of everything you spend at Amazon is given to that nonprofit every month. And I did ask how much mine was. I won't tell you how much it was, but it really does add up. And if everyone in this room did that for Pathways, and you keep ordering online, that's a little way that just keeps on giving all through the year. So I just wanted to mention that. I now get to do an introduction that I've waited 2 years to do. Ronnie Lott is such a special, special person. And I know that Holly Smith, who's not here, when she asked me if I would ask Ronnie if he would speak at Pathways, she said, of all of our ambassadors and their requests for speakers, Ronnie has always been the very top choice. So she asked if I would ask him, and of course he said yes. And he graciously said he would wait 2 years and be with us today. As a reporter, I covered many of his successes through the years. We all know, as a 49er, a 4-time Super Bowl champion. I held some of those rings one day. They're very heavy. A Pro Football Hall of Famer. When did that change? I thought it was NFL Hall of Fame, but now they call it Pro Bowl or Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't know. Anyway, he's great. He's the top. And since retiring, I've been able to serve on some boards and committees with Ronnie and special events like this one. And he has always used his fame to do everything he can do for our community. He truly is an ambassador of One from the Heart. He's also an astute businessman, founder of his own nonprofit. I think it was 30 years ago or so, All Stars Helping Kids, that helps raise children out of poverty, an amazing nonprofit. But I asked Ronnie the other night, how would you like to be introduced? I've always enjoyed it through the years when somebody who's introducing me says, how would you like to be introduced? And sometimes it's not your honors, it's not your awards, it's what really means something to you. And Ronnie said, I'd like to be known with my wonderful wife, Karen, who is here. Karen, would you wave? That we have raised 3 great kids together. And that's Ronnie Lott. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Ronnie Lott.
How lucky are we? You know, you have a chance to see some people that you haven't seen in a long time. You have a chance to hear a guy from Nebraska. From Nebraska? Hey man, I have a story for you. And the reason I have a story for you, when I was a kid, man, I wanted to be a Cornhusker. And they had this one guy, Johnny Rogers. And so I got a chance to meet Tom Osborne. And it was an incredible moment for me. So yeah, Cornhusker? Yeah, you touched my heart, man. And I'm glad that you're the leader of this organization. It's phenomenal. We were talking about rings. I have to pass these around. The reason I'm passing them around is show and tell. I realize that we're in COVID. I haven't looked at them. No one else has looked at them, so I'm going to pass them around. I remember how many rings that are in there. So just make sure that I get them all back. The next thing is that, Jeff Deaton. So my friend here, I have this helmet, and you're going to help me. Yes, you're going to come up and... Well, I think we know that this helmet would not fit your head, but I need you to help me because we're going to give this helmet away. And because you are my buddy, I need some help. And so Jeff Deaton, who is a great friend, but a great community giver, a great supporter of this area. Yeah, Jeff, come on up, man. Come on up. He's right now going, really? But, and the but is around this, the young lady that was here a minute ago. Jenifer, you know, in moments where you are sharing yourself, a lot of times you don't realize it inspires me to do certain things, like it inspired all of us to do certain things. The reason I called him up, I just want you to know, all of what you do, every day, we have teammates, as we were growing up as kids, playing sports, they did the same thing. They wanted to do everything they could to help. And so when you were sharing your love for all your teammates, for all the people, I could feel it. We feel it. And the reason I wanted to bring him up here is that he's a part of my community. And I know that I can count on him. And we know that we can count on you. And so I want to thank you because that's hard to do. Hard to do in a tough environment. We've all played in tough environments here recently. I just want to applaud you one more time for what you've done. And by the way, I'm going to do something different because you're sitting next to a guy from Nebraska. I'm gonna. I'm gonna like make sure that everybody just just wave your. I want everybody just to wave. Yeah, there we go. This is another social distancing way to talk and show people the love that you have. And you know what? And I saw this recently in Minnesota. And I saw this in Minnesota, and they were waving to the kids. And so right now, we're waving to you. You know what? You guys, look, you brought me here, and now we got to give away the helmet. And we're going to give away the helmet. And the reason we're going to give away the helmet, to me, there are so many Hall of Fame people here. There are so many Hall of Fame people here. And as I look around the room, tremendous Hall of Fame people. All of you have done an incredible job. Now, some of you raised your hand, and that kind of blew me away that you were here the first time. So the first timers, if you could stand up. The first time, I mean, and I'm sitting here, and I know two of them. That tells you how old I am. Great seeing you. I love you. It's great seeing you. Ms. Clint, great seeing you. And I know you. Great seeing you. And thank you for all you do. Because I only have one. And how many of you were here? Could you stand up again one more time so I can just make sure I can? Can you stand up one more time? The first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First breakfast. 7 of you? 8? 8? Okay. Okay, well, we're going to get 8 of these. I don't know when we're going to be able to get it done, but I'm going to get 8 of these, and I'm going to give this one to you in the purple. And because of the.
Why don't you keep talking?
All right, thanks. And so imagine, which I know, imagine that helmet when the first banquet, X amount of years ago, they didn't have a face mask on it. That helmet, 30 years ago, didn't look like that. And so I'm thankful that 30 years ago that we all are thankful for them for showing up. And we're thankful for them because of what they stand for. Now, the speech that I was going to make, and it's just really simple. It's simple. And I recognize every day I wake up, every day I put on my pads, every day I look for a little woo. I mentioned it last night. And as I was thinking about it this morning, I got a little upset. And the reason I got a little upset this morning, I was trying to think about woo. And as I was thinking about woo, I was thinking about the Dallas Cowboys. And I got really angry. And I was in the shower. I was, God, why do I hate the Cowboys? I was like, what the? God. And I remember, and the reason, and then I started going back to when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, oh my goodness, I was a Redskins fan. I was a Redskins fan, and boy, did I hate the Cowboys. And then I get drafted to the 49ers. And I get drafted to the 49ers, and we're playing the Cowboys, and my friend calls me up. His name is Dennis Thurman. He called me up. He played for the Cowboys that year. He goes, man, we're getting ready to come out there, and we're going to kick your... And I said, what? He's like, we're going to kick your rear end. And I'll never forget this. I was driving on 280 near Saratoga Avenue, and I saw this fan. And this fan was going, and I swear to God, I was like, and I was thinking, what is this person doing? And then I realized, kick the Cowboys' ass. And when I remembered the moment, and I was sitting there and thinking about it this morning, I was like, God, I understand. I understand why we hate the Dodgers. I understand it. I understand it. Because when I was a kid, growing up in San Bernardino, boy, did we hate the Dodgers. Oh, I didn't like the Dodgers. I was a Baltimore Orioles fan, and I did not like the Dodgers. Oh. So that leads me to woo. And why do we want woo in our lives? We want woo in our lives because we have people like that. And when we have people like that care as much as she cares, I know for a fact that every day you give me a person like that cares as much as she cares, we're going to win. We're going to win. And the reason we're going to win, and it's simple, because she's going to do whatever it takes. When you go to Nebraska and you play for that team, knowing what I know, Coach Osborne taught you to do whatever it takes. And here we are in a moment where we got to raise $80,000. I'm in. My wife looked at me, she goes, you better write the check. So we're in, and we're going to play our role. And I'm asking all of you, that's why I brought him up here. He knows, he's in. And just think if every table right now, and I'm looking, and we just 500 to 1,000, we just said we're in. That's woo. That is complete woo. And the reason it's complete woo is that Coach Walsh would tell you that's all you want to do every day in your life. Every day in your life. And the reason he would say that is that you have exhausted that moment. Now, as we had the... Come on, let's get it going again. Come on. Get it going again. Here we go. Woo! Now I feel like I'm at Stanford's game. Woo! So, man, I love being a part of a huddle. And just think about this. Quickly. Now, if I had done this in Southern California at USC, there would have been I don't even want to say what would have happened. And the reason why is that sometimes you don't know how to get it done. And we don't know how to get it done. But in this group and in this arena, you guys know. And you understand it. And when you think about woo, because I want you to think about this. Think about the woo of your life. Think about the woo moment. Man, are you looking in your purse? While I'm talking about woo? Oh my goodness. No, she didn't. Not looking in her purse. I'm talking about woo. Coach Walsh would have fined me $1,000. And the reason why is that Coach Walsh would have said, it's all about the woo. So, we're raising $80,000, and I'm sure you do not want to contribute more than $1,000 right now. So, I don't want to fine you. But I know that it was something very important to you that you had to look in your, right in the middle of my freaking speech. No, I'm so thankful and so blessed that all of us can laugh, that we can have a moment where we can cry. And I was crying. And the reason I was crying is that I know how tough it is. I know how tough it is. I feel your pain. I've seen pain. A lot of us don't know your pain. We haven't been able to feel it. We don't know what it's like to sacrifice. We don't understand that. And I just want you to know, I get it. And I not only get it, but I hope all of us, we get a chance to touch you today. We get a chance just to come by and say hello to you. Because as we all leave here caring. Leave here caring. Leave here understanding that it could be you. Leave here understanding that you better exhaust all your moments, because we're not promised anything tomorrow. So as you exhaust your life and as you play as hard as you can, as you do all the things that you need to do, trust me, you will love the woo in life. All the great players that I've ever met, they will tell you that exhausting every moment is essential. I'm asking you to do it for this organization. And that's what they're asking you. Sometimes they're not bold enough to say it, but they're asking you to exhaust every moment. And that's what Pathway has done. They have exhausted every moment. And I want to thank them for being in our community and changing our community and helping our community and finding ways to make a difference. That's what great organizations do. That's what great organizations do. That's why he did what he did. That's why the Giants were saved. Because in extraordinary times, that's what we do. We find a way. We find a way. And I want to thank you for, again, because I know it was very tough to keep the Giants here. And a lot of people will tell you, thank you, because of this year and knowing what I saw this year. Think of how many people enjoyed everything that you guys did. So hats off to you guys. Congratulations. Let me wrap this up. Rita, come on up. Oh, I'm going to make you earn your money. Rita, how lucky are we?
We are lucky. We go to events and we try to help people, and you are the best. Don't you agree? And here, woo-hoo for Ronnie.
Well, I can say this, and trust me, and I'm not leaving yet.
No.
And by the way, we have a long ways to go. So, Pathway, and all the people out there, let's find a way. Let's find a way to continue to exhaust life. Let's find a way to continue to have that woo in our life. Let's continue to find ways to make a difference with Pathway. Let's continue to find ways to make a difference for the underserved. Let's find ways to make a difference for people you don't even know. Let's find a way to change the atmosphere. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Isn't Ronnie Lott the best? Woo-hoo.
Wait a minute.
You're gonna,
I have one good hit left.
oh,
And whoever has my rings,
I was about to
I'll-
ask that.
I'll-
Where are they right
yeah.
now?
Oh,
Where
okay,
are the
okay.
rings?
We'll be up here. You know, I know they'll work their way back.
Are they really way over there? So they have not even made it to this side of the room? Uh-oh. Ronnie, you want to fill a while? Well, we'll account for those rings, Ronnie. We'll make sure that he leaves with them. But thank you for sharing your stories, Ronnie, your rings, your life, your money, your philanthropic efforts for the community. You are truly amazing. Karen, thank you for being here with Ronnie. And I have to let you know, Ronnie, I learned another thing we have in common. I hated the Dallas Cowboys. I was brought up in Texas. I went to work for a congressman in Washington who was bigwig and had never been to a pro football game. I was going to grad school at night, working on the Hill during the day. He gave me tickets to go to my first game because he thought I would care because it was the Dallas Cowboys. And they played the Washington Redskins, who were my team. And that was the year that, who's the legendary coach that, no, the one that the trophy is for, Lombardi. Vince Lombardi was the coach of the Redskins for a very brief period. And that was one of the games I saw. And the Redskins beat the, as you said, off of the Cowboys. So, yay. And the Giants are going to beat the off the Dodgers next year. It looks like Atlanta's beating up on them pretty bad right now. I just want to thank you again, Ronnie. It was certainly worth waiting 2 years to have you here with us. And I just want to remind you again that as you leave, your envelopes are on the table or in your program. Either leave them on your table if you've written a check and you want to get it over with today. If you want to take it home, mail it in. or if you want to go online and give that way. But we have just 30 days to meet that $80,000 Ronnie told you about. And I just want to thank all of you again for being here in person. It meant so much to all of us. And as you can tell, it did to the frontline healthcare heroes that we are here to honor. So, as I always say, if God's willing and the creek don't rise, and maybe we should say now, and if COVID is under control, we will all be back here in person with the full allotment in this ballroom, not socially distanced, next year. And in the meantime, stay safe and thank you.